Hello and welcome back to Joe's Maths. In our session today, we are solving another two-step equation when the distributive property is involved. And this time, we're kicking the levels up a little bit more. So if you're ready, let's get started. Okay, so when solving our two-step equation using the distributive property, remember that we always apply the distributive property first. Then we're going to move into collecting our like terms and then solving for our unknown variable y. And as always, I'm going to do the working to the side for our distribution. That's so that we will be able to follow along with the working a little bit easier. And hopefully, if this is your first time following along, you won't get lost in the process. So remember that distribution means that I'm distributing my 3 to everything in the parentheses, which means that my 3 will be multiplied to y, and then its product will be added to 3 times 2. And 3 times y is equal to 3y, and this will be added to 3 times 2, which is equal to 6. So now that we have simplified our expression, I'm going to now plug that back into the equation, and then we're going to begin collecting our like terms, and then applying our our two one steps to solve this equation. So the first thing we're going to do now is collect our like terms. So we have 3 and y, which are like terms, and also my 6 and 28 are also like terms. So I'm going to begin by collecting my like terms with my y. And since my y is smaller here, that means that I'm going to move it to the left-hand side of my equation where my 3y is. And since this is positive, that means I'm going to be subtracting that on the opposite side of our equation. And once we've moved our y, we're going to return everything else back to the equation where it was. And now let's simplify the left-hand side of our equation. So 3 minus y is equal to 2y, returning my 6 and my 28. And please remember that if this is not your first time using the distributive property, if you are familiar to this rule, remember that you do not have to go through all of these steps that I'm taking. Remember, I'm only going through the steps so that if this is anybody's first time watching, they will be able to follow the steps. But usually when collecting their like terms, we're able to do all of this within one step. But again, that goes with how strong you are in simplifying and collecting like terms when it comes to these type of equations. So now we're going to be grouping our 6 and 28 together. I'm going to return my 28, and since 6 is smaller, I'm going to be moving my 6 to the other side of the equation with my 28. And since 6 is being added, that means I'm going to subtract it on the right-hand side. And now let's simplify our right-hand side of our equation. So 28 minus 6 is equal to 22. And that would have completed the first step of our one step in our equation. And now to do our second step, now we're going to go on to division, remembering that our 2y means that 2 is being multiplied by y, which means that both sides of my equation will now be divided by 2 so that I can get my variable y on one side of the equation by itself. And when 2 divides into 2, that will equal to 1, leaving us with just ry. And then when we divide 2 into 22, we know 2 divides into 22 is going to give us 11, which means that my y for this equation is equal to 11. Now let's perform our check. Remember that in checking, that means that I'm substituting y equals 11 everywhere in the equation that my y appears. So we're going to now replace y with 11. And then we're going to begin simplifying our equation to see if both sides equal to the exact same thing. So in previous steps, in previous videos, I've showed you how you can simplify our parentheses by 1, either using the distributive property or 2, using PEMDAS. But for this example, I'm going to use PEMDAS, where I will be adding 11 plus 2, which will equal to 13. And when 3 is multiplied to 13, that will equal to 39. So now to simplify the right-hand side, and when 11 is added to 28, that will equal to 39. And we see that both sides of our equation is equal to the same thing, which tells us that y equals 11 is the correct solution for our equation. Okay, so there you have it. We just solved another two-step equation with the distributive properties, and this time we had more variables and constants involved. Remember that as we work through these questions, the steps are going to be getting a little bit harder. So it's important that you practice and develop your skills so that you could be able to follow along as we work through more videos. So make sure that you get some additional practice in, and I'll see you right here in the next video on Jules Math Tools, where we make math easy.